Saving America one entrepreneur at a time. It's the Biz Rap Podcast with your host, Michael Manahan. The show that celebrates small business and entrepreneurs. It's Biz Rap Radio with your host, small businessman, educator, and author, Michael Manahan. And welcome to another edition of Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for joining me today. We've got an absolutely fabulous show lined up for you. If you're new to Biz Rap Radio, we are the show all about small business and entrepreneurs. Yes, we are there supporting the people that make America what it is, small business people and entrepreneurs. I know the government tells you that really everything that happens in this country is the result of government and them managing and controlling everything. But really, that's not the case. Most people in America work for a small business. As we pulled out of the recession, most new jobs were created by small businesses. And yet there's a war going on in this country, my friends. It is the war on small business. And who are we fighting? Well, we're fighting the government for one thing. They're putting in every rule and regulation they can to control what you do and hopefully put you out of business. There's the other big player in this war is the big banks. Yeah, no, they're not out there looking to support small businesses. Remember the day you used to go to the banker and you get a bank loan? Not anymore. No, the bank wants to give you a credit card, like my friend who got an American Express card, $50,000 limit, runs it up to about $45,000, misses one payment, and American Express jacks his interest rate up to 27%. Now, there was a time if you charged 27% interest, you had to be a member of the mafia, but it seems today, no, the banks can get away with it, and so you have all of the small businesses here in America with credit cards, $50, $60, $100,000 on their credit cards. That's how they finance their business. And what are they doing? They're paying interest rates 20, 24, 25, 27%. It's absolutely ridiculous. And what happens when the economy starts to stumble? Well, is the government out there helping you? No, they're bailing out the fat cats on Wall Street and the big corporations while the small businesses go out of business. So I'm here fighting for you, trying to help you do what you need to do as a small business person, as an entrepreneur. You've got to make money. You've got to make profits. Yeah, it's not a dirty word. It's okay to make a profit. You have an obligation as a small business person to make as much money as you can. Use that money to take care of your employees, take care of your family, take care of your friends, and take care of your community. I've traveled around the country. I've talked to a lot of small business people. And you ever go out to like a 10K run and you see that the 10K run is sponsored by Coca-Cola? Well, you want to know something? For Coca-Cola, that's advertising. But when a small business sponsors an event, an activity in the community, it's a little bit of advertising, but it's a lot of coming from the heart. It's the small business people taking care of their community. And of course, you've probably all seen the Little League team that's sponsored by the local muffler shop or something. So do support small businesses, and if you're a small business, really go out there and make some money. Now, here at Biz Rap Radio, one of the things we do is we have guests and experts on the show who can help you do a better job of running your business. They have strategies to help you improve your marketing, improve your customer service, improve your employee relations, and help you fight and compete with those big corporations. But we also have other experts on the company, and some of our small business people that are listening to us today are successful small business people. They've got to the stage where they're actually making money. Well, when you start to make money in this country, you become a target. There's two big people who are going to come after you. One lives in Washington, D.C. The other one lives in the local capital of your state, and those are the tax collectors. They want a big share of your wealth. So part of what you need to do when you become successful, when you finally got some money, whether you're making a good income or whether you've decided to sell your business and take some cash off the table, you need to engage the services and work with people who are experts in how to not evade tax, but how to legally minimize the amount of tax that you are going to have to pay for the government, to the government. And then in addition to that, you may be an expert in your business. You may be an expert at running a restaurant. You may be an expert at running a muffler or an auto repair shop. But believe me, that doesn't mean you're an expert at managing money. And I've seen so many small business people finally get to that stage. Their business is cash flowing really well, or perhaps they sell the business and they got $500,000 or $1 million or a couple of million in the bank, and they really don't know what to do with it. Well, I am so happy today. My guest for this show is a gentleman who can help you with those issues. It is Al Knobloch. His company is HK Wealth Management. Al, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Now, did I paraphrase that correctly, that you are able to help somebody who's got their business is now finally cash flowing, either making more money than they need to live on, or perhaps they've decided to take an exit strategy. They've just sold their business. Now they're sitting with a bunch of money in the bank. Is it the right time to talk to you?
It's absolutely the right time. It's critical for business owners to bring in the professionals that can help direct them along the way. There's a lot of landmines to being a business owner. It's an extensive minefield, not just the tax collectors, but all kinds. You can make various critical mistakes in planning along the way. And it's awesome when you are successful, because a lot of small businesses fail. But the key to success is to keep that revenue stream and to have all of your assets properly deployed, properly positioned to where they work synergistically, and then to have the best cost efficiency and tax efficiency, and then also have your exit plan, whatever that is. And that can be make your cash, sell off and get out, or I want to run the business and pass it on as a legacy. But it's paramount along the way to always keep your advisors close to the vest, whether that's one person, whether that's two people, three people, your family, your tax person, your financial advisor, your business attorney, whatever. But you need extra sets of eyeballs.
Al, I want to kind of differentiate you from other people, because I often talk to small business people and I talk to them about money, and they say, oh, well, I've got my CPA. This guy who basically looks at the books once a year and does my tax returns. But really, that kind of a person doesn't have the ability to do what you can do for somebody, typically.
Correct. I mean, a CPA, there's an old saying, necessary but not sufficient. And that's a criterion for evaluating anything. Yes, the CPA is absolutely necessary, unless you want to do your own tax returns. But not always is that sufficient. And there are great CPAs. I know hundreds of them. And sometimes if you're a solo person, maybe you've got an MLM business or something, and they can do your tax return if you're an Herbalife distributor or something like that, or you own one piece of income property. That's fine. But if you're a small business that's employing people and you've got payroll and you've got your tentacles are long and deep, you need other sets of eyeballs.
So if you're sitting out there and you think you've got it covered, could you have a CPA who looks at your books once a year? Well, if you're not making any money, you probably do have it covered. But if you are starting to make some money, or if you think you're going to be making money soon, you really need to have an expert who can help you really maneuver these minefields that can trap you. And it's too late, really, to wait until you say sold the business, cashed out. You have to start preparing long before that. Al, when should somebody really talk to you?
Well, when they're cash flow positive and when they really have a good idea of what their 1 year, 5 year goals are, and where they have a good idea of where they want the company to go. And even if they don't have an exit strategy, because probably a lot of people don't, but when you're cash positive and you're going, okay, we had more at the end of the year than we started with, and there's something left over. That's about the time that the light bulb should start going off, that I want to start bringing in other professionals to consult.
Yeah, and I'm going to make a comment about that, because one of the other things I see entrepreneurs do is they finally get to the stage where the business is making more money than what they need to take out in salary. So obviously the owner needs to take some compensation. It's finally got to the stage. He's making what he's comfortable with, $150,000 a year, whatever it is. He's happy with that. He's got a nice home. He's got a nice car. The business is making money. And often these small business people, they'll leave the money in the business rather than taking it out and doing something useful with it. And the number of times I've been called in as a consultant to a business that's doing $5 million a year in revenue and is sitting with $1 million in cash in the bank. I mean, it's just absolutely crazy. Do you come across people like that?
Yeah. In fact, I'm working with a company that's been nurturing them along as a potential client, and they're looking to increase their capital to grow the business. And so they're the perfect candidate to bring in an investment banker, not a vulture capitalist, which a lot of venture capital, well, I say it pejoratively, they want so much. They want their pound of flesh and then some. But a good investment bank that's able to work with startups or small companies, that's the time, that's perhaps even the first set of eyeballs to get looking at the page. But yeah, absolutely. You want financial efficiency, and there's two sides to that. There's taxes, and then there's just cost of doing business.
Okay, Al, let's talk more about that in the next segment because we are coming right up on a commercial break. It is Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio. I'm here with Al Knobloch, HK Wealth Management, and we will be right back. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, and thank you so much for sticking with us today. And if you just joined us, we're talking with Al Knobloch. His company is HK Wealth Management, and what he helps people do is, well, you know what? Rather than me telling you what he helps people do, Al, put it in your words. What do you help people do?
Well, I help two classes of clients, individuals and small businesses. We're going to focus, I guess, more on the small business today, since that's the general theme of your program. On an individual side, I help people get the premium services, access to the products and strategies that typically the high net worth people are accustomed to. And you hear that word bandied about a lot. I work with high net worth people. I work with ultra high net worth people. Well, that's great. They're accustomed to a concierge level of service that you need to qualify for, and a lot of times that qualification is you need $1 million investable, and everybody doesn't have that. So there's a echelon of the investing public that falls right below that. We can call them the sub high net worth, or we can call them the future high net worth. I like to just call them the 100,000-aires. People that have some savings built up after a few years in a 401k, or they've got some cash, or they've had some level of success. And they typically get shut out of the concierge service. If they walk into the big wirehouses, they get sent down the hall to the mutual fund desk if they only have $150,000 or something. Those gunslingers down there, they don't particularly want to deal with them. And so that sector of the investing public typically gets average or middle grade services and products. And so what I've tried to do with my company, and I recognized this need early on when I got into the business, is that there's ways to help those people. And I've built my company servicing the sub-high net worth echelon. And that works out pretty well because they're really happy. They get individually managed accounts. They get good insurance strategies. They get that kind of cost and tax efficiency advice. I'm a big believer in real estate. If their real estate's not properly set up, that can be a drag on their personal economy. So I look at everything. I bring in everything, put in as many affiliate sets of eyeballs like we were talking about earlier. You want to dial yourself in so you get the maximum bang for your buck.
I like the fact that you mentioned real estate, because I know that you also deal with other things, insurance products and other kind of tax strategies, and all of those comprise, I think, effective managing of the money you have. But I know a lot of people who call themselves, wealth managers, or they can help you with your investments, and all they want to do is sell you a huge fat insurance policy. And yet I'm also a big believer in real estate. I think, if you've got some capital and you have the appetite for it, it's not for everybody. But I personally own a fair amount of real estate. I own a couple of apartment buildings, and I've done extremely well with those. So I'm glad to hear you say that.
Absolutely. I think there's a triad that the successful people, and this is not to say if you only have two of the three or one of the three, it's not a pejorative statement, but I would think the goal would be to really have your triad, your base set would be your investments, your insurance, and your real estate. And I'm a big believer in all three. Mm-hmm. Like you mentioned, a lot of people, I want to sell you a great big insurance policy. Mm-hmm. And I'm a believer in the product. It needs to be properly employed instead of just sold to somebody. Mm-hmm. And, I come across people all the time that have a really poor insurance strategy because somebody at one of the big companies just sold them something because that's what they were, their new product or whatever. The same with real estate. Your mortgage needs to be right. Your equity position in it needs to be right. And your exit strategy needs to be right. The other thing that I'm a big believer of is buy and sell, not necessarily buy and hold. Mm-hmm. There's a time to have and a time to have not, like we say. And too many people, they get married to their investments. They fall in love with them. And sometimes that's a time when it's served its purpose and it's time to let go and reinvest your capital doing other things. Mm-hmm. And that does not matter. I mean, you always need to look at your insurance policy to make sure it's right, and you can adjust it. You can even 1035 exchange those. You want to make sure your real estate's proper. There's ways to tax advantage those. And obviously your investments should be as actively managed and administered as possible instead of just, buy a mutual fund and hope you've made the right choice and then whatever. So, yeah, absolutely.
So if I'm a small business person, I don't know, let's say 5 years ago I bought a franchise for I don't know, Wendy's hamburgers. I'm not even sure if they're a franchise, but let's say I did. And I've been running it now for 5 years, and it started to do quite nicely. I'm taking $100,000, $120,000 out in salary, and in addition to that, the business is making another $75,000, $80,000, $100,000 in profits, and I've squirreled away $200,000-$300,000. I haven't really done much with it. I have I've got a small life insurance policy, and I've got my house with a mortgage on it. But I'm now is that a kind of person that you could be very helpful to?
Absolutely, and that's the prime. That's when, let's say, the fruit is ripe. When you've attained that level of success. You have a property, you've got an insurance policy, and you've got some cash, and you've got a functioning business. Mm-hmm. And that's the time to then go in and dissect it A to Z and make sure that everything is optimized. Make sure that you've got the right tax buckets to park your money in. Mm-hmm. There's everything, if it's a multiple employee situation, you might want to look to do a 401k or some kind of profit sharing plan. Mm-hmm. I can build those from scratch. I'm doing one right now for a company in West LA. Just not to change the subject, but we've been talking about these strategies and who should. I guess we're not really changing the subject. I'm not sure why I said that, but I, before we forget to do this, we're almost halfway through our show, and we have not let people know how they can get a hold of you. So, Al, what's the best way for the person who's listening says, yes, I need some help in managing my current wealth or the wealth I'm going to be creating over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. How do they get a hold of you? Well, the best thing they can do is just call my phone number, my office number. My office is in Westwood, and the number is 310-482-2352. Again, 310-482-2352. And then they can always go to my website, which is www.hkwmanagement.com, www.hkwmanagement.com. And there's a contact us or whatever tab on there. But the best thing, they can just call.
Okay, that's great.
I'll get the message if, that's it. I'll call anybody back within usually the hour.
Okay, great. Give the number again.
310-482-2352.
Okay, fantastic. So if you're in the situation where you think you should be doing a better job of managing the wealth you have, and also if you're in a position where your business is starting to cash flow, you think it's going to continue to do that, you need to be planning. You need to be planning today. You can't leave it down the road, because down the road you get screwed if you don't put things in place today. So give Al a call. I'm sure in a 5, 10, 15-minute conversation. He can tell you whether he can be of help to you or he can't. And Al, if you can be of help to somebody, I know this, I don't want to put you on the spot, but people will always wonder, well, how much is this going to cost me? How does that work?
Very, very good question. I'm glad you asked that, because I was about to raise my hand like in class to say, please make sure to let them know that it's no cost to call and speak to me. I don't bill by the hour like an attorney would. So I'm happy to field anyone's phone call, anyone's inquiry, and address their issues, tell them, an introductory kind of cursory overlook and say, would this make sense for us to get together?
Gotcha.
Even so, there's no charge for my consulting time like that. Mm-hmm. Where I would ever get paid would be if we transact some business. Mm-hmm. Well, if it's, let's say down the line an insurance policy comes in, that it's a good thing for the business, or a key man policy, or just anything, then I would be taken care of on that end. If there's just assets to move under management, then that's all done on a fee basis. Mm-hmm. That fee schedule is set, and then I share in a participation in that. But
Gotcha.
There's no charge to consult, and really there's no charge to implement most things.
Okay, that's good. And again, you can help with even things like setting up 401k
Absolutely.
plans. I know that for small business owners, and you'd probably you know far more about it than I do, but there's these like top-heavy 401k that allow the business owner to contribute. I think it's as much as $50,000 a year or something.
There are a lot of hybrid models that, depending on the third-party administrator and whoever the manager is, you can construct. I mean, the two polar opposites. Let's back up a second. The polar opposites are the basic middle-grade defined contribution plan. That's your typical 401k, all the way over to the defined benefit plan, which allows the business owner to really put all the money away kind of at the expense of the employees. Mm-hmm. And then there's a lot of ways you can kind of meet in the middle. Mm-hmm. And there are ways to construct the 401k or the profit-sharing plans for companies that allows them certain things you can discriminate against. Not, if you're extending the privilege to one person, you kind of have to do it to all. But
Right.
there are still ways that you can pack more money and favor the people at the top, and it's all legal. It just has to pass all the ERISA standards. But yeah, there's ways to.
Okay, let's discuss that a little bit more in our next segment. We are coming up to commercial break. It's Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio, here with Al Knobloch, HK Wealth Management. We'll be right back. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan, here in the studio with Al Knobloch, HK Wealth Management. And Al, thanks again for being with us today.
It is my pleasure.
Okay, so Al, we were talking a little bit about 401ks, and there's and I want to talk about the 401k profit sharing, because one of the frustrations I experience with small business people is they hire employees, and then the employees are always wanting a raise. And, of course, they like their employees. It's a small business, so they give their employees raises. And after 3 or 4 or 5 years, they now have a bunch of overpaid employees working for them because they haven't really watched what's happening in the market. I have a company I'm working with with that right now. Every single person in the company is paid way over market. And by putting in a profit sharing, you can kind of, rather than pay employees, to continue to give them raises, you can say, hey, I'm going to let you participate in the success of my business. So we're going to keep your raises very, very small, just maybe no better than what the inflation rate is. But you're going to get that extra money by participating in the profit-sharing plan.
Those are great. I agree with that. Every business is different. The caliber of their employees and where they want to go, and what the turnover rate is. A lot of businesses, if you get somebody in, you hire them, they work 2 or 3 years, they're not going to stay. And so you could, one thing you can do to slow that down is put a vesting schedule, in and say, okay, we'll contribute, we'll match or whatever, but whatever we contribute, you're going to have to wait 3 years to collect it, mm-hmm. or to have access to it, to be vested. So vesting schedules are one way. Definitely you can incentivize. It's the carrot and the stick, and essentially, or the brass ring, I guess, or whatever the proper metaphor is. But if you have key employees that you want to nurture along, there are ways to do that, and the profit-sharing plans are a very good way to accomplish that, and you entice them to get more productivity and more loyalty to the company because they're going to have a bigger pot of gold and allow them to share in that, and that can even segue into the real premium way to lock in your employees is using a COLI program.
Well, what is a COLI program? I've heard that name, but I really don't understand exactly what that is.
It's very simple. COLI is an acronym for corporate-owned life insurance, and there's a sister to it called BOLI, B-O-L-I, which is bank-owned life insurance. And they're essentially the institutions that created this because they have the money to pay the premiums.
Right.
So it's very simple. A company, a boss, an owner has, I'm just going to give you a hypothetical real quick. Business owner, and he's got 10 key employees. Maybe he have 100 people working for him, but he's got 10 managerial, 10 people around the table that he wants to really take care of. The company can purchase a life insurance policy on each member. They have to agree to it. You can't insure somebody that doesn't acquiesce, but you can insure blood or business. So in a business sense, the company buys a life insurance policy, typically a whole life or an IUL, whatever. And for doing so, the company is named as a beneficiary, but you can split the death benefit, the beneficiary, with that person. So you might go, listen, Mr. Smith, we're going to write a policy on you. The company's going to buy it. It's not going to cost you a dime. We just need you to accept this. We're going to give you half the death benefit, and we're going to give you half of the cash value that builds up as long as you stay here. If you leave, you surrender that. In which case, if he leaves, then the company is the 100% beneficiary, et cetera. So that's a pretty good thing. So if you do that on every single employee, then you have locked in. That serves as key man, which is a kind of a little sister to that. But that's a way to lock in your key employees and give them profit sharing, because that buildup can be their executive deferred comp 5 years, 10, 20, 30 years down the line.
Right.
Now, BOLI and COLI are the same thing, except when the banks own it, the banks pay their own premiums. But a company can do that. Now, that's a big expense. If you wrote 10 life insurance policies on 10 people, that's an expense. You can premium finance that because there are a lot of banks and lenders that will actually loan the company money to pay the premiums, and all the company has to do is pay the interest on the loan. Now, the bank's going to cut themselves in on a piece of the cash value and a piece of them. They want collateralized, as well they should be. But you can really dial in a premium strategy for, and you need to do this with a successful business. I mean, if somebody's floundering and they're going to file bankruptcy next year, this is not
going to work. Yeah.
Not even close.
But there's a lot of companies like that, and one of the big fear that I know, I speak to a lot of entrepreneurs, they finally got their company successful. They're doing it, maybe even not. It's not that big, but maybe they're doing $10 million a year. They got 30 or 40 employees, but they've got really 4 or 5 employees that are critical to the business, and they're always concerned, what if one of those people leaves? And if there's no long-term incentives there for the employee, and he might be making a good salary, you're paying him $200,000 a year, but somebody comes along and says, we'll pay you $250,000. The guy's going to go. But if you can develop some of these strategies to keep that compensate the employees over the long term, then they're going to stick around.
Absolutely. I mean, COLI is, every Fortune 500 company has a program, and all the banks do. Large companies do. It's not as utilized in the smaller business market as much as I think it should be. It is the golden handcuffs, and it's a way to. You also can fund your pension obligations. You get it accomplishes a multitude of objectives. It is the premium strategy. Down if only somebody has 3 or 4 employees, maybe you do that. Maybe you just look to do key man.
Right.
So if they leave, you've got a little bit of a handcuff, or if something happens to one of them, you got some money to replace, to train somebody else. But insurance is utilized in the business community a lot differently than it is just for you to, as an individual, that you want to take care of your wife or kids or something if you're gone. I mean, it is. I love insurance when it's done properly.
Right.
And again, like you said earlier, there's a lot of people that sell insurance, and then you really want an advisor, a real strategist to go in there.
Well, it's interesting that we're talking about this because I've consulted with many small businesses. I don't profess to be an expert in kind of wealth management, but I know when small businesses need help and in this area, and I know a lot of people, including people in the insurance business, and you're the first one that's ever explained to me how that COLI works. And I imagine the reason is because most of the time the people with that expertise are work trying to get those big, huge corporations, and they're not bothering with the small company that makes $10 million or that has $10 or $15 million a year in revenue. But you know about that, and you can help these smaller businesses.
Absolutely. That is, just like I work with the just underserved market in the individuals, the same with the small businesses. A small business with 5 to 10 million in revenue or assets, that's right in the wheelhouse.
Right. Well, that's okay. So again, Al, once again, how can somebody get a hold of you?
They can call me at 310-482-2352, or they can go to the website www.hkwmanagement.com.
Okay, so again, if you're a small business person, your business is finally cash flowing. Maybe it's been cash flowing for a while. You've got some excess capital. You're thinking about, what do I do with it? Do I buy insurance? Do I buy real estate? Do I put in some 401k plans in my company? You don't make those decisions without talking to somebody like Al. And believe me, your local CPA who does your tax return is probably not the person to talk to. They just don't have the depth of knowledge. Yes, can they help you prepare your tax return? Sure they can. Can they give you maybe some advice on depreciation and things like that? Yes, but complex tax strategies using insurance and real estate and protecting your wealth, you need an expert like Al, so give him a call. It's Mike Manahan, Biz Rap Radio, and we got to go to commercial break. We'll be back right after these messages. And welcome back to Biz Rap Radio. It's your host, Michael Manahan. We are today speaking with Al Knobloch. He is HK Wealth Management. And Al, you were just talking during the commercial break there that you said you wanted to make sure you advise the listeners that you're give it in your own words. What are you and what are you not?
Okay, what I am not is a certified financial planner.
Okay.
And what I am is an investment advisor.
Okay.
My company is an RIA, which stands for Registered Investment Advisory firm. And the difference is I do a lot of the big picture planning, but I'm not going to sit and figure out if you need $8,420 a month at age 71 to keep your lifestyle.
Gotcha.
You can go to a financial planner for that, and God bless them, there are hundreds of them. Anybody can run an illustration of what your current income is. But I'm more of the big picture advisor, and you need to do this, this, and this, and stay away from that, and that, and this should optimize you for a successful future.
Okay, and then once you've got kind of that big picture in place, then you can help put those pieces together.
Yeah, I direct traffic.
Yeah.
I give advice, I do consulting, I direct traffic, I bring in specialists that roll up their sleeves and get amongst it, so to speak, that will grind through illustrations, and that will, the extra sets of eyeballs, whether that's insurance people or tax people or attorneys, whatever, whoever is necessary to bring in as the specialist. I'm the general practitioner.
Gotcha. Well, it sounds to me that if you're a small business, so you're listening to the show, if you're a small business or even a medium-sized business, and I know this sounds like a bit of a broken record when I say this, you'd almost think it should be obvious that every small business person is talking to somebody like Al, but time and time again, I'm called in on a consulting project, and I start to look at a company's balance sheet. I look at their profits. I look how I've got their corporations set up, and there's been no planning whatsoever. The company's paying just outrageous amounts of tax. There's no effective strategy for exiting the business, no effective strategy how to defer taxes as much as possible, and no effective strategy on how to invest the excess income. And again, I mentioned earlier in the show, I've gone into businesses, they're doing $5 million a year in revenue, and they got $1 million sitting in the bank account. You know what? Earning $192 a month in interest or something like that. It's just absolutely crazy. So look, you need to be talking to Al. Now, Al, we've heard this acronym ESOP, but what exactly is that?
ESOP is another underutilized strategy. ESOP stands for Employee Stock Ownership Program. And ESOPs it's an esoteric strategy, and it's certainly not appropriate in every case. But if a business owner is finally successful and they want to, share some of the wealth with their employees, this is another tentacle of golden handcuffs. They can, they can employ an ESOP program, and this is where you bring in a specialist because all the actuarial data and all that is critical, for doing this. But they can essentially cede some ownership of their company to the employees in a private sense. This is a great thing to do if you don't want to go public. If you go public, you're giving up control because somebody you don't know on an exchange has part of your stock. But an ESOP is a way for a business owner to receive money in a tax-deferred, a tax-advantage method, and they give a portion of ownership of their company to their employees, but they still drive, they still control. And it's a great way to bring in some tax-advantage capital in certain cases where they have employees that they want to take care of, and they can essentially reap the financial benefits of doing that and not give up control. It's an alternative for I don't want to go public. And there's a lot of fear of going public because you look what happened to Steve Jobs.
Oh yeah, it's going public is. I've worked with a lot of public companies. I've probably been participated in 25, 30 companies that have gone public,
right?
And it can be a real nightmare. And you can lose control. And once you lose control, a lot of bad things can happen.
Yeah, if the M&A process fails, sometimes an ESOP could be a rescue.
Yeah. Now, there's another reason that I understand why people should really be thinking about talking to someone like you right now. It's my understanding that the baby boomers have owned so many businesses that we're going to be faced with a situation where in maybe 5 to 10 years, if you have a medium-sized business, it might be very difficult to actually sell that business and get rid of it because of the number of businesses that are actually going to be on the market. Have you heard the same thing?
I haven't heard much to either substantiate or dispel that. I do know that there are hundreds of thousands of business transaction sales in the state of California every year. Again, supply-demand. If every baby boomer is going to dump their business at the same time, that basic, flood the market, you're right, 100%, it's going to be more difficult. But there are plenty of business transactions. There's going to be a lot of M&A work just by the sheer volume, and that's a real good kind of canary in a coal mine of the overall U.S. economy is what's the M&A activity. What's critical is when business owners are getting out is that they have the proper exit strategy and that they minimize their tax hit when they do that. And there are some ways that we can take a look at that. There's some tax advantages they can use using some more lesser known parts of the IRS code to defer a lot of those taxes too. And so.
Yeah, so it's really important if you are thinking about perhaps, hey, it's time to get out, time to sell the business. There are strategies you need to put in place, number one, to maximize what you're going to get for your business, and number two, to minimize the amount of tax you're going to have to pay on the sale of that business. And you can't do all those in a couple of months. You can't say, okay, we're going to sell the business, 2 months from now and put all these strategies into place. Sometimes you need to be planning some of these things for a couple of years, maybe even longer. So if you are considering I'd say that a time horizon 3 to 5 years might be, or plan on selling the business within 3 to 5 years. You need to be talking to Al today to start to build the strategies you're going to use, maximize the value you get for the business, and minimize the amount of tax that you pay. And even though you probably end up paying capital gains tax, it's still a tax, and it's still money out of your pocket. So definitely give Al a call. Al, good advice?
Absolutely. And one other thing is just a plug for having a trust and estate plan set up. That can really prohibit a lot of problems, during the exit process and setting up, for a legacy. And you need to prepare to transfer the wealth, and you also need to prepare the recipients to receive the wealth so they don't fumble.
Right.
And so, this is, if you're a guy that just works for the factory and gets his paycheck, gets his gold watch, and he goes home and he's going to retire, you can get by with a minimal amount of planning. But if you're an entrepreneur and you're a business owner and you're cutting your teeth, in our economy and you're successful, it is just paramount to have extra eyeballs on the page, people that will bring in the right people. And like you mentioned, you need a 2-year minimum off-ramp approach, because there's a lot of planning and things that can be done, especially in the tax advantages and those strategies, exit strategies, that you don't wait till 3 weeks before the sale closes and, now what?
Right. And now particularly, too, because so many people with us living longer are accumulating significant wealth after those typical retirement years. You used to be retired at 65. I know people that made 90% of their money after they hit 65.
My dad did.
There you go. Look at Al. We are running out of time. I want to thank you very much for coming in. It's Al Knobloch, HK Wealth Management. Call him 310-482-2352. Of course, this is Biz Rap Radio. Here at Biz Rap Radio, we believe we can fix the United States of America through a fundamental concept that individuals pursuing their own economic interests in free markets will create more prosperity for more people than can ever be achieved through government regulations and a planned economy. I'm your host, Michael Manahan, Biz Rap Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Al, thank you for being with us today.
My pleasure.
And we will be back again next week with another edition of Biz Rap Radio.